We're bringing him on right now.
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
No, it's I'm back from vacation. I'm at NFL Films on the third floor. I'm ready to start this training camp tour tomorrow. So I'm ready to get back in the swing of things like everybody else.
Yeah, man, Broncos are getting underway. Had their first acclimation practice yesterday. Are you going to make it out to Denver at all on this tour?
It looks. I mean, I'm booked. I know straight through August 6th, but I don't know before then. I'm booked, but after that, there could be some openings for me for sure.
Okay, let's go. I'd love it. And Baldy, you'd get to see one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid offensive lines now in Denver. This is the first time I think that we've got to talk to you since Quinn got his new deal. What did you think of the Broncos making him the third highest paid guard in the NFL?
Guards are getting paid now. You know, they've got to stop these monsters inside around the league right now. When you're going up against Kansas City twice a year, somebody's got to go toe-to-toe with Chris Jones. Like he basically has and so you need guys that can be able to handle that, can stay there and take on these monsters inside so the quarterback, has got a flat pocket to step up into. And so I think the last time we talked, honestly, Zach, you threw that question out to me. I didn't think they had a choice but to sign Quinn and to get him locked up, and start building this thing. Sean Payton has a history of paying guards. Jari Evans, a good friend of mine, he was the highest paid guard in the league when he was in New Orleans for a while. They had a kid named Nix playing left guard. He was the highest paid guard in the league for a while until he got hurt. I think Sean Payton recognizes the importance of those players at that position.
You also have told us that you think the offensive line can only be as good as its center. We've seen the beginning of this center competition, and while the quarterbacks are rotating every single day, we can't give too many details about what we've seen from the centers, but in the past, they've rotated them 2 days at a time. So instead of rotating them on the same schedule as the quarterbacks, they kind of alternate a little bit. Do you think that that's the right move so that you either get more consistency with the offensive line or you work with different quarterbacks? What do you think?
Well, it's a little confusing, not what you just described, but it's a little confusing because you honestly, the way you always know who the starting center is, he's always with the starting quarterback, but you know who the starting quarterback is yet. And so it's a little bit confusing. I mean, you just go out in pregame warmup, the starting quarterback is always with the starting center, even though there might be 3 centers taking snaps, or if you go to training camp. But since there's competition both at center and at quarterback, it's a little difficult to really judge who's ahead at this point. But ultimately, they've got to get these positions figured out. And it's hard because you only get 3 games. You might get a couple scrimmages. How many snaps is this, are you going to be able to make this decision on? It's a little tough. Most teams have their center position nailed down right now. Denver's one of those teams that's a little bit in flux.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big thing for this group. And yesterday, Sean said that the offensive line is the most important position group on the entire team. I have to imagine being an offensive lineman yourself, you agree with that. And if you do, Baldy, why is that the case? Not just on offense, but the entire team.
Well, your offense is only going to be as good as your offensive line. I mean, New Orleans offense got better the day they drafted Ryan Ramczyk and plugged him in at right tackle. They got better that day. And they played like it, It's just because of the interaction, both in the run game and the pass game, how you're only going to be as good as that group up front. You don't care who's playing quarterback or who's that receiver at running back. They are dependent upon those 5 or 6 guys, including the tight ends, to be able to keep the line of scrimmage clear. And the best teams have the best offense line. It's just the way it's always been. And here's the deal. There's a point in the Super Bowl last year in overtime where the right guard in San Francisco goes the wrong way. If he doesn't go the wrong way, Brock Purdy probably hits Brian and Ayuk on the opening drive of overtime, and they score a touchdown. And maybe they win that Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not picking on the right guard, but the right guard made a mistake. So, and Chris Jones came free and just about decapitated Brock Purdy. If you make a mistake up front on your offense line or you don't execute a block in a pass game or run game, the play doesn't work. And so that's just the reality of how important that position is.
The Broncos aren't going to put on pads until Monday's practice. So these 2 practices we've seen from the offensive line, I'm curious how much weight you would put in them. Because one of the things Sean Payton said yesterday is that at some point in the play, either the offensive lineman or defensive lineman, he used the word acquiesces, just kind of gives up and says like, okay, you won this one. You kind of have to let him go. Does that mean there's a real competition there? There is something you can read into it, or you just have to wait to make any evaluations till Monday?
I would never wait till Monday to make evaluations. I mean, I evaluate guys in walkthroughs. Like, I think, if you're just say Andrew Whitworth back with the Rams when he was a left tackle, he tried to win every single walkthrough, and on the other side, Aaron Donald tried to win every single walkthrough. Like, I'm evaluating these guys. There's a lot of things you can do mentally, a lot of things you can do from a fundamental standpoint. You can keep your pad level down. You can show up out there with your shoes tied, ankles taped, like it's game day. The mentality is there. If you're in shells, certainly, you're not going to drill a guy in the ground and finish him. You got to practice right. But your first two steps are critical in any run block, and how you're going to mesh with either the guy next to you or the guy on the other side, whether it's combo block, cutoff blocks. You've got to take the right angles. For a long time in Denver, their offensive line coach was Alex Gibbs, and nobody chewed out more players in practice in the history of this game, including Vince Lombardi, than Alex Gibbs. Like, your steps and your angles and your pad level are critical in every play, no matter what the dress is for your practice. So to wait till Monday to make these evaluations, to me, you're missing valuable time.
Yeah, Baldy, great point there, and I love that you brought up Alex Gibbs, of course, a real folk hero here in Denver. And on the defensive side of the ball, how important is it for the Broncos to find a good, solid number 2 cornerback to really solidify their secondary? Because you have Pat Surtain on one side, but a lot of people think that, no matter how good Pat is, you can always look to the other side if that second cornerback spot is weak. Is that a massive hole for the Broncos to fill, or do you think that Pat, even with how great he is, that he can still be good even without the number 2 cornerback being filled?
Well, I don't think Pat's greatness in his consistency of play has anything to do with the other corner. He's locked in on his side of the field. But, look, I thought Jaquan did an unbelievable job jumping in the slot last year and nailing that position down. I feel like it's a position of strength, and everybody's looking for that guy. But the corner opposite, Patrick Surtain, look, if you're playing Justin Herbert, I don't know who the receivers are going to be right now with the Chargers, but certainly if you're playing Patrick Mahomes, and if he feels like he's got a weakness to one side, Andy Reid's going to wear that guy out, and they're going to call plays against him. So you're only going to be, it's a cliche, but you're only going to be as strong as your weakest link. Right. And so it's important. And Patrick wants, he wants to get some action out there. He doesn't want to go through games where they're not coming after him and targeting him and, giving him a chance to make a play or shut down a play. So if you can have a position of strength on the other side of him, it's going to make Patrick happier because he's going to get more work. But if you don't have a strong corner on the other side, he's going to get a lot of attention.
You brought up Jaquan. The competition seems like it should be Levi Wallace, Riley Moss, Damari Mathis. Would you consider letting Jaquan compete for that other outside job? Because he's a smaller guy. He's only 5'8", maybe listed 5'8", not the fastest. But would you give him a chance out there? Because he did look really good, and it seems like you'd want him on the field as much as possible.
I'd be a little hesitant. I feel like he's got that position. He's got the skills for the position. He's got a knack for the ball. If you want to try to cross-train him outside, I think it weakens his inside game a little bit. I don't think he's made to play outside. I'm not saying he can't. There's certainly corners that can, but he reminds me of Kenny Moore in Indianapolis, who's been a Pro Bowl slot corner. And I tell people all the time, he's like Jaquan. He's not a very big guy. I think Kenny Moore was a free agent out of Valdosta State. I don't think he was drafted like Jaquan. But regardless, when teams are in a 2 receiver set, Kenny Moore goes out and plays outside, and he runs with these guys and makes plays on the ball like you have to. Most teams are in 3 wide receiver sets, so I think that's the position for Jaquan right now.
Baldy, we've made it 10 minutes into talking to you, and we haven't talked about the quarterback, so I got to bring it up right now, what we've seen in the first two practices of training camp and then also in the practices during the offseason, we've seen Jarrett Stidham be the best quarterback on this Broncos team, but kind of Bo Nix is right behind him. But Jarrett Stidham's still the better quarterback, but Bo Nix is right there. If that's how it goes through training camp, where Jarrett Stidham's the better quarterback, but Bo Nix is right on his tail, what do you think Sean, in like a veteran offensive coach, would end up doing? Would he go with the guy that is the better quarterback in this moment, or because Bo has so much potential being that first round pick and he has been almost as good as Stidham, would he go to that direction?
Well, it's a great question, and it's worded correctly. You want to play your best players. You can't lie to the rest of your team. But if there isn't much difference, or if the difference is small, maybe you make the commitment to the younger player and put him out there. But you don't want to put anybody out there before they're ready, and you don't want to put anybody out there until they earn it. So I'm interested to see how Sean's going to split these reps in these games, because ultimately, if you really want to evaluate a guy, whether it's Bo or Jarrett or Zach, you want them to get as many reps with the first-team offense as you can. You want them throwing to Cortland and handing off to Javonte. And you want, Quinn at right guard to really make proper evaluations. Honestly, especially with just 3 preseason games, there really isn't enough reps to go around right now to really have a true quarterback competition. So practice is going to be really, really important. And the consistency that Sean's looking for has got to show up in practice. The games might decide it for us on the outside, but I think these practices every day are all going to be really, really important.
I'm curious what you think of the 7-on-7 drills, because that's when we go through and we try to figure out how these guys did each day. The ball didn't touch the ground for the Broncos during 7-on-7s today, but during the team drills, the ball was on the ground a lot. So when you look at that, do you just balance it out and say like, yeah, pretty average overall, or do the team drills matter more? What do you think of 7-on-7s?
Well, I always think that, 7-on-7s, favor the offense just because there's no pass rush, there's no pressure. You get a clean look for the most part. You can put the ball where you want to put it most of the time without any obstruction. I mean, most throws in the NFL are obstructed throws. Most throws, a quarterback sees just a little bit of the receiver, if at all, and he's thrown it to a spot. So it kind of favors the offense. So it's not unusual to see that, where the ball hits the ground, or there's a lot more incompletions in a team drill than in a 7-on-7. But the 7-on-7, I mean, it gets you to read defenses. If you're throwing go routes, the ball placement, is it inbounds, giving the receiver a chance? If it's red zone, is the ball placed properly so that the receiver has a chance to win the contested catch? Like, all these things have value. If it's a running back coming out of the backfield, can he shake the linebacker? If it's your tight end against a slot corner, who can win those drills? If it's a man, if it's in zone, all those things have a value and are all part of every team's practice reps.
Baldy, speaking of value, you bring so much value to this show. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to catch up as much as we can with you throughout training camp. But we know you're busy, and we look forward to it.
You got it, guys. Thanks for having me, and I'll talk to you real soon.
Right on. Let's do it.
I'm interested to see what happens in Denver during this whole thing.
Oh, me too. Thanks, Baldy. Have a great one.